All right, so I'm going to start this where I finished the last life update, not when I actually finished it. I mean, I finished recording it because I must confess there's a week gap between when I voice typed it and I was editing the thing. Honestly, at this point, just giving the immense amount of grammatical as well as actual work that voice typing makes me do, I'm just gonna say it's not faster. I mean, you would think it would be faster, but I can type really fast and with pretty minimal errors. Okay, ironically, as I try to type that sentence I made, I kid you not, 10 times my average number of typing errors. Because I was so conscious of how many errors I was typing. Anyway, when you're voice typing, you have to manually put all the punctuation and capitalization stuff, which means moving the cursor to a particular spot every time you finish a sentence at the very least. And surprisingly, it takes me almost as much time as just typing the sentence. Plus, there's way more cognitive effort that goes into little tiny wrist movements necessary to move the cursor just right, and it kind of hurts my soul. Also, there are a lot of words that are wrong. And often, I'm going and I'm well, that sounded fine, but then it didn't make any sense written out. So I ended up rewriting significant portions anyway, which I'm sure if you listen, or read it, if you listen and read, see people with the audio version and the written version, that's probably quite vexing. So yeah, at this point, I think I've convinced myself that typing is the better way. Plus, it has the added benefit of being able to, I can work on my life email when I'm at, say, work, which as is the case right now. And I think for the first time ever, I have an hour where I have no homework that needs to be done. So yeah, back to the good old written word is the plan, the very least for this life video. So basically, with all that aside, I finished recording my last live email and then played some Beat Saber because I'm good at that game and I like being good at things. It was Friday the next day. During my gap between classes and work, I went to a very lackluster tutoring session for statistics. Basically, there's this one, statics. It's been statics this whole time. Okay, every time I've said statistics, it's statics. That makes so much more sense. I'm when did I take statistics? This is not in the email. I'm just an idiot. Okay, anyway, basically there's this one square room about the width and height of a single table and a chair, and there's 24/7 tutoring for mech students, but it's tiny. I mean, I guess it's cool they have it, but it's also this room has the capacity for exactly 2 people, a student and an instructor. They must be really banking on the fact that there's really, really low demand. But despite such state of affairs, when I got to the room, there was indeed no other students. And much to my surprise, because I thought, myself fortunate for having arrived at the exact time when no other mech students and all mech OFCSU need help. But as I actually began to ask questions, I soon realized that's because there's a reason why there's no one in this tiny room. The tutor has no idea how to help you. So basically, how Mesa, the tiny tutoring room, works is that the senior students are hired to help undergraduates on an on-demand basis. In principle, a good idea. But the problem is that the seniors actually remember nothing from their sophomore year. I knew more than she did. I mean, that's somewhat understandable, but mostly disturbing. I've got to say, if you can be considered a very successful senior, because I assume there's a GPA requirement or something like that to be hired as a tutor, and essentially forget how to solve, trusses. It's called a truss. Sorry, this is also the thing. In statistics, then it begs the question, why do I bother learning statistics? Statics. If I'm literally just going to forget it anyway, and there will be zero repercussions, then why the heck am I learning in the first place? So yeah, basically, the tutor lady just spent 30 minutes trying to remember how to solve trusses and effectively using Google, which to be fair, I'll give her props for. Her Google skills were above average. So I guess if you have no life skills, then these guys might be helpful. But I, myself, have access to the internet just like she does, except I don't have to go about relearning how to solve trusses. So yeah, very disappointing. See, it's not like I needed tutoring, it's just that I want tutoring. In other words, I'm fundamentally lazy, Or you call me efficient, just saying, equally valid word. I think it's dumb to spend 15 minutes using the interwebs to find an answer when you can just talk to a dude and find it in 3. So yeah, Mesa, though, sucked at tutoring. At least the sort of tutoring I was looking for, because it took longer, not shorter, and that's sad. So I did that. Did a math quiz. Read more of Owen's book for the book study with Alan, Matt, and then now we have this new guy whose name I've forgotten. I then proceeded to go on a run with Dad and make it a bit over 2.5 miles at a 7:30-minute pace. So I'm getting back up there. Nice to see. Then finally that night, I played a bit of Minecraft and watched a bit of anime. Saturday morning, I participated in a book study, which was decent. I worked on making chainmail links, and that happened, because why not? I then spent 2 or so hours designing and cutting up one of my shirts to model for the chest plate of the armor, for the armor I'm going to actually start making relatively soon instead of just 10,000 rings. After that, Joe finally had some free time, and I was able to help play some match with him and catch up with him a bit, which was a big bueno. But that was cut short by Maddie's birthday party, which honestly was pretty lame. We did get to play a bit of Smash Bros, and Neo and I watched a few episodes of Clone Wars, so it wasn't all that bad. Once I got home, it wasn't too late, so I decided to watch a single episode of anime and then go to sleep. Sunday morning, I went to church and it was average, but afterwards we were all hanging out playing Magic, and it struck me with renewed vigor how cool the community I'm part of at Southgate really is. So yeah, I had a brief epiphany of appreciation, and then I ceased to have that epiphany and returned to normal level of Southgate appreciation. From church, I drove to Neo's house, wherein I played a tiny bit of D&D before receiving a call from Mom, who was like, "Did you forget we were doing things with the family this Saturday or Sunday?" To which I was like, "Oh, yes, I totally did." And then I yeeted myself from D&D for the sake of the family. And yes, as might be expected, family things ensued. We drove to Estes in Ben's car. Hypothetically, Grace should be next to drive, but that will only happen if Ben isn't on edge about her driving. And then in Estes, I played Dad in a game of chess at the Ink and Brew, and surprisingly lost. I played without my queen, of course, though. I will say, he exceeded my expectations of his skills. Thus, unwilling to be defeated, I then challenged him to a rematch with my queen and crushed him very thoroughly. I think it was like less than a 20-turn win. So that way, my pride was restored. After that, I got some food at a pretty nice restaurant, and we drove back home. Overall, good time for, family with a family, and about 3.5 out of 5 stars is what I'd rate it. Once I got home, I spent like 2 hours trying to learn this candy cane chainmail weave, and I think I basically got it. It might have taken me like another half an hour or so before I actually do it with any references. And then I was like, why am I doing this? This isn't worth 2 hours. So I gave up. In the words of my friend Michael, if at first you don't succeed, then depending on the nature of the task, you might want to quit to avoid years of unhealthy comparison and self-doubt. As you can see, he's very wise. The next day, I went back to the grind. I went to classes. I got through my Mech 105 project and then went to attend John's etymology, aka bug defense. And I'll be honest, I was pretty radically disappointed. I'm pretty confident John doesn't read these, so I think this prospective rant is low risk. And even if he did read these, this is still my honest opinion, so I would say it anyway. See, this is why you should read Life of emails, so that when I say bad things about you, you know. Basically, the amount of actual content in John's defense, I could probably find in a day. I guarantee a week. It seemed like he researched 5 peer-reviewed papers and put the information within a PowerPoint. Which would be great if it were, any old project, but it's the culmination of a graduate degree. Like, if giving a presentation as good as John's is also required to get a major, then I feel I qualify for like 17 majors. Or at the very least, I could qualify for 17 majors given 17 weeks. So yeah, I was very underwhelmed and totally expected him to fail, but he passed, which made me disappointed. Not in John necessarily, mind you. I'm happy he got his degree, but in the college's low standards. My respect for all graduate degrees has decreased by at least 72%. It's a very significant depreciation in my respect. So yeah, I wasn't able to stick around for the decision of John's defense because I had to get to calculus, but I heard the whole presentation, and I felt I got an accurate picture nonetheless. I then attended my Calc 3 class and proceeded to spend time in the Natural Resource Building, as is my routine, with the intent to do homework till Rachel Christie. However, I did exactly 0 homeworks because I actually got sucked into playing chess. See, it's not like habitual to go against my better judgment in pragmatic matters, aka usually when I have the thought, I should really be doing homework and not playing chess right now. I stop playing chess and do homework. But in this case, I just didn't. I kept being like, well, one more game. And I find the fact that I, did so kind of disturbing. I mean, I know it's just chess, but perhaps this is indicative of like a general degradation of my strength of will and habit of prudence. And if this is so, how long will this degradation How long has this degradation been going on? And what despicable state of weakness is my will currently in? And if it's been going on for a while, is it possible that the unthinkable has occurred? My will strength has been reduced to slightly above average. As you can see, many existential questions plague me, and I may never know the answer. Moving on. See, I said I was moving on, but to circle back, the fact that my intellectual response, now recorded in infamy for all to cherish, is to make light of my failure of will, indicates me this is actually a real problem instead of like not a real problem. I don't know, maybe it's serious. Anyway, I went back to Ratio, where Noah, instead of being base and a cool leader, was lame and anti-Chad and had us watch this video about Black Lives Matter instead of doing Nerf war. Very tragic. Not the video, the loss of Nerf. Because, as we all know, it's Nerf or nothing. However, the video was informative, perhaps a little political against the BLM movement, but whatever. I didn't know anything about it, though, so at the time it was happening, I didn't know anything about it at the time it was happening, and the movie actually was like the first time I had seen any of the George Floyd footage, so it was admittedly educational, albeit a little too late to be efficacious. Once it ended, I got home and ran with Dad and made a PR, which was cool. I then started watching Small and the Forest Spirit with Dad, which is basically just like an anime of a kid being a kid, and Dad seemed to like it, so I think I might have actually found an anime he enjoys. So yay! I then slept. That Tuesday, I sacked my quiet time to go to ECE tutoring, only to find out I was entirely useless and proceeded to regret my life decisions. I then registered for classes for next semester, and I am very pleased to report that I should have ample time in my morning for routines, which I know text doesn't express it well, but I'm actually so pumped that I got a good schedule. Like, actually, having a good routine is so necessary for my growth as a human right now. I value it immensely. So yeah, did that, ate food, did work, and then I spent 2 hours cleaning up the shop with the Baja building team, and it was mostly lame, and though I'm not terribly surprised, I discovered that the extent to which the Mechis are active is the extent to which they're very messy. Like, oh my gosh, kind of pains my soul. Also, if I get cancer or some other lung disease, look at that, I guarantee you that the cleaning session can be causally identified as the source. The amount of dust and other strange, indescribable substances I inhaled during that time should not be described, should I wish to continue to deceive myself saying, it's probably fine. Once I left the cancer-inducing environment, I then proceeded to go to Joe's house, where Magic was played, as well as some Minecraft. I then found a skeleton spawn close to the main place that I used to utilize, and that was that. I went home and entered into a brief but refreshing hibernation. I know it's not technically accurate, but, gotta change up somehow. Wednesday, I had quiet time in the morning, took a statics quiz, and did well. I experienced a nice hectic day at work, since my boss was gone for Halloween, like some all-inclusive resort thing for the weekend. However, I managed, albeit making some non-trivial mistakes I had to own up to, which was fun. I then hung out with Neo, watched some Clone Wars, went to King Soopers to gather sustenance. At that fine establishment, I purchased some blackberries and croissants. The combo was surprisingly good, I must say. Don't underestimate blackberries and fancy bread. Thus, having gathered food, we ate it, and we fought aliens with snipers, and it was great. Oh, and during the fighting of aliens, Cindy and I got talking, and she decided she'd be willing to coach me in singing. See, singing is another thing that Alex 1.0 would be like, yeah, don't do that. But see, me, Alex 2.0, in his infinite wisdom and ability to overcome himself in the pursuit of being actually good at everything, has decided to take Sydney up on that offer and learn how to sing. So yeah, I'm pretty pumped. Also currently, kind of a bad student as I've done none of my music homework. But I've constructed a series of very high quality excuses that I can deploy on command when asked. So I think I'm going to be okay. After Neo's, I then went to Wednesday Night Magic, which was decent. I think my distaste for non-1v1 play is growing, though. However, I usually bring homework or chainmail, so I did that while I spent like my 10 minutes waiting for my turn, so it makes it bearable. But still, 1v1 is so much better. Next Thursday, I faced a dilemma, whether or not to cover my coworker's shift. See, as previously expressed, I deeply value my morning routine, and since I had to sack my routine for previous reasons, I was eager to return to it. But as also aforementioned, my boss was currently out of the office, which means that if someone did not cover my coworker's shift at our apartment, it was legit up a creek, so I begrudgingly decided to do it. Don't get me wrong, I still got paid for the time, and hopefully, I'm accumulating social IOU bucks for when I'm sick. So it wasn't without its perks, but, still was late. I then took my ECE Preemie, which is basically an easier pretest that actually counts for part of the midterm, but can be redone if you want. And I think I aced it, but it turns out I actually got one problem wrong, which is because of evil trickery. What kind of evil professor puts down as a multiple choice question the right number but off 1 decimal place? See, I was like, yep, that's the right value, and moved on. But no! The answer was actually none of the above because the stupid decimal. See, I understand, but I don't understand. I think that's just cruel. So yeah, that was mega sad. Now I have this dilemma if I should take the redo or not, because I could do worse, and that could be, worse, but it was also such a dumb reason to miss a problem. So yeah, I probably won't redo it, but it's still vexing. I then did homework and coordinated stuff with my makeshift VR hackathon team. Oh, and then the first snow of the year happened. I would say it was cool, but it was more accurate to say it was cold. Sorry, I just channeled my inner John there for a second. No, actually it wasn't cool because biking plus snow equals less than biking plus not snow. I also way underdressed, so my ears ceased to exist. However, after school, I went to my first singing lesson with Sydney, where she basically started teaching me or testing my raw, unpolished abilities. From what she said, I think my raw skill is above the raw skill average, but I'm not really sure by how much. Regardless, I'm glad I'm above average. I then got home, ate food, and participated in a hip-hop dance club. I then helped Grace with math as I edited the last live email, and then proceeded to actually send out that later that night. Friday, I did more school. At work, I was able to finish the code for my upcoming Mac 105 project, which was big bueno. I then did maximally garbage on a math quiz, but that's okay, because they don't matter. See, only recently did it really sink into me that my quiz and homework grades were replaced by my average exam score. Should it be higher? And in retrospect, that fact makes sense of why my math teacher was like, feel free to cheat. Not actually, but kinda. So as long as I don't fail my exams, I should be fine. He says, as he writes this literally like 3 hours before his Calc 3 midterm, which is very not prepared for. So yeah, after that, the VR hackathon began. Now, there's not really much point in going in sequential order with the hackathon happening since, literally the entire of it until the end was just us sitting in a chair working on our computers. Like, externally, nothing changes whatsoever. But internally, both in our persons and our program, much changed. So let me treat the whole hackathon weekend as a unit. Here are some pictures. Picture. Actually, first I should probably explain this whole thing. Okay, so basically the VR hackathon, despite its name, was not actually involving any hacking. Rather, it was a weekend where 12 teams got together and coded educational games from scratch for VR headsets that an HP sponsorship let us use. Now, first off, I would like to make the prevalent point that those headsets were garbage, at least their sensors were. See, they were supposed to be like these fancy high-tech sensor headsets that could tell you things like cognitive load and heartbeat and eye movement, but the universal experience of everyone at that event was no. No, they did not tell you those things. Not because they couldn't, in principle, tell you those things, but rather they just didn't. Everyone, my team foremost of all, had trouble with the sensors. See, the plan was for one of our guys, Ronaldo, the only one of our members that with any actual skill set, wanted to make an AI network that could read the headset data and return things like anxiety levels and stuff. And of course, that sounded cool. I didn't have anything else for him to do. So I told him, go for it! Also, side note, I led this team. See, how this works is I basically just gathered all the socially awkward CS majors and then rallied into my charismatic personality, and thus Unreal Haptics was born. So yeah, basically the entire competition, Ronaldo just spent developing an AI network, which, while cool in theory, had one glaring flaw, aptly pointed out by one of the tech supporters. Why? See, as a tech guy said, and yes, I did recognize this from the beginning, but, when you're assigning tasks to a bunch of skillless freshmen, and when one guy's like, hey, is it cool if I do this pointless thing I know how to do? Your answer better be yes, because at least he has a purpose in life, which is more than you can offer the others. So the tech guy was like, why develop an AI network when you could just set threshold conditions? And Ronaldo's response was basically like, because I like AI networks more, and it sounds cooler, which is fair. So yeah, basically the whole competition, he worked on a pointless but technically functional, as far as I could tell, AI network to analyze the headset data. Thus, as you might expect, one of our project goals was to get him said data. But after our guys tried to turn on the sensors for 3 hours, and after he gave up, I got them turned on in 15 minutes, either by epic leader skill or by chance. It turned out that the stupid HP didn't make the data accessible to a coder. Like, there's no way to export the data. All you could do is view it in their fancy data window. So yeah, that was the worst. And for no explicable reason, the data sensor just turned off again. Hence, HP headsets suck. Okay, but to be fair, they did the rest of their job just fine, but they suck in that regard. So yeah, how the competition worked is that every team got to choose a prompt for the first come, first served basis. My team happened to be conveniently located by the closest position to the prompts, so we unjustly got first pick. And the prompts were stuff like, help make people get anti-PTSD, teach the children the thing, make the scaredy man be less scared. Almost entirely, it was broad and ridiculously simple. Okay, except our prompt was to make a VR experience that assists a therapist with helping a patient overcome some phobia. So we got the prompt right, and over the free dinner they provided, basically debated if we should make spiders crawl on you, or make you really high and look down. Okay, side note, while the free food was great, the food was mostly pretty meh, and I felt at least 63% deceived. The others also expressed that this was their impression as well, because at the original meeting they gave us like Pan Express, which made me think, oh, this event is going to have some high quality free food. But no, the food they actually gave us was meh at best. I mean, I still would have gone, but I'm just saying, I was disappointed. So we ate food and eventually decided to go with heights, which I pushed for pretty hard, and I'm very grateful I did, because spiders would have been actually impossible. However, we also discussed a phobia I'd never heard of before, called tryptophobia, which upon seeing the images, I think I totally have. I would include a picture here, but it actually disturbs me, so I won't. But honestly, if any of you aren't made anxious by that picture of the hand with all the holes in it, I feel like you have some significant disorder that should be addressed. I will tell you, look at it, but you might actually be scared, so actually maybe don't. Enough thinking about that. So yeah, as the competition progressed, Ronaldo did his thing. The one African girl, Sela, and I were stuck on reading peer-reviewed papers because she could hardly use her phone, albeit to code. Our horse science turned computer science cat-eared headphone girl, I feel like you now sufficiently understand her, made her art because that's what she was good at. And I was like, do that. And then the remaining two non-me members actually worked on coding, but one was kind of bad at figuring out stuff and the other was okay. So yeah, Ian and Brett, Ian being the one that was okay and Brett being the one that was mad, worked on coding the entire time. Well, I did hodgepodge jobs like finding sounds, fixing sensors, reading peer-reviewed papers, and spending actually 5 hours on a PowerPoint. Oh, and one thing bears mentioning. Neither Ian or Brett had any experience in coding in Unity. Now, I've hopefully given you a pretty accurate description of just what my team was made of. Let me tell you how the event went. At the end of 24 hours worth of work, our program consisted of, you go up. I kid you not. The code was, when the button is pressed, translate up such and such a speed at such and such a time. And once you reach the top, walk forward till you hit a wall. That was the entirety of the code Ian and Brett created. Now, to be fair, they stole some environments from the interwebs, which is legal because they were free. So you looked at it and it looked kind of okay, but that's literally all they did. Now, to be fair, again, I know it can be hard to code, especially when you're basically new to the language, so I don't blame them. I just want to point out the utter depravity of our creation. I actually went around and viewed other people's programs, and every single one was better than ours. Like, actually, our code was the worst. But, and you knew this was coming, didn't you? But. So that PowerPoint I mentioned I worked on earlier? The one I spent 5 hours on? Yeah, that wasn't an exaggeration. The PowerPoint was the most beautiful PowerPoint you have ever seen. And it wasn't even that long. What could possibly make creating a 10-slide PowerPoint to 5 hours, you ask? Answer, wordsmithing. See, it just so happened that before the VR event began, the VR organizer sent the participants a copy of the grading criteria, and I, upon reading said grading criteria, realized something. Namely, that 90% of our grade was completely code independent. AKA, the way they had set it up, it was theoretically possible. You could have no working code and still get a B+ grade. So I got to work and basically made the perfect PowerPoint that used just the right keywords to draw the judge's attention to the relevant section of their grading sheet, while also being subtle enough to not make it obvious I was drawing their attention to the relevant section of their grading sheet. Basically, I made a PowerPoint that, if executed well and not too subtle, would give us a perfect score in every non-coding criteria possible. So, once judging came around, it became very clear my PowerPoint was leagues above everyone else's. Since most participants were CS majors, I also had way more social skills than them. Thus, I don't think it's unlikely to say that the result my team had was because I had the best presentation out of everyone. If anything, it was probably a little too subtle because, see, in the end, the judges only got like 7 minutes max to judge each team, which meant they were all like stressed out trying to fill in like the 20th criteria on a sheet in a mere 7 minutes. But regardless, I gave a spectacular presentation by comparison, and a meh presentation objectively, and thus the depravity of our code was hidden beneath my fancy talking and exuberant hand gestures. Honestly, if anything, our garbage code might have helped us. And I say that because it was so simple and lame that all the judges had no problems understanding and operating it. It was literally, press the button and look around as you go up. While everyone else had like actually cool and skill projects, they had to spend like 1 or 2 minutes explaining just how their code worked and how to use it. And when you only have 7 minutes to make a pitch, that is a huge disadvantage. So in the end, my team, despite our garbage coding, ended up getting 3rd place. And we were told we were literally 1 point from 2nd place. So you could basically say we got 2nd. And everyone on my team agreed that our placement was at least 50% due to my presentation. And not to sound arrogant, but it was at least 70% due to my presentation because we were just the worst. So yeah, me and my team of misfits ended up winning 3rd place in the VR hackathon, as well as getting $166 in prize money each, which is epic. And basically that's how it went down. The whole experience just proved that you can suck at a job, and if you can talk well, you can still succeed. Not that I approve of the moral, but it seems very true. After the whole event concluded, I got home and got pretty tired. I had dinner with Amber and Morgan, which was okay. There were a few interesting topics of conversation, raised only briefly and shortly, and then abandoned thereafter. But still, it was good to see the two of them. After I talked with Jordan from New Zealand for a while and ended up making a Terraria world to play with, as well as talking about stuff, and that was fun. And basically, that's how my night ended. Monday, I once again took a coworker shift, again begrudgingly, but for similar reasons as before. Did school and then did work. However, notably, I got to eat like 3 free Einstein bagels at work that were left over from some like sign-making event, so that was a definite boon. I then went in for some math tutoring for my 3rd math midterm, got home, watched some anime, and then went to Ratio, where for the first time I didn't do any homework because all my midterms were done that week. And all my classes were like, we'll give you a homework break so you can study. Thus, as you might surmise, I used that homework break to play Starfield during Ratio. I got pretty far to Amethyst. Not bad for an hour and a half run. However, the presentation was pretty bad. I felt bad for the new people that came, and Karina too, because Joe brought her for the first time. Because Alan just wasn't very good at public speaking, and wasn't very good at public speaking and evidently knew nothing. Which is a big problem at Ratio, because being smart is kind of the point. So yeah, it was a cringe lecture, but oh well, at least Alan tried. I then talked to the Alan and caught up on his life. That was good. I learned a lot of mostly irrelevant facts, but Alan is more enjoyable to hear rant than most. Once I got home, I worked on a new anime that wasn't Sketch, which can be hard. I'm finding a new anime that wasn't Sketch, which can be harder than you think. I then finished my old anime and had a conversation with Ben about voter fraud, which he got me into. See, I decided to give Ben my vote because I don't really care about voting, but Ben clearly does. And then when he went to turn it in, he realized he had to sign it, so he forged my signature. Of course, I didn't know about this until I got an email from the government being like, your signature on the ballot did not match one of our records. Please fix this or your ballot was submitted to Bureau of something for investigation. To which I was like, oh no, and proceeded to assure them it was totally my signature. I was just having an off day. There was no need to investigate for voter fraud. None at all. So yeah, I guess it's kind of comforting that our government can catch stuff like that. But also, I very much do not want to get in trouble for voter fraud. So yeah, not comforting in my case. I then proceeded to go to bed the following day and lived once again. I was feeling sick, so I didn't do any exercise, but nevertheless I went to the gym and chilled in the steam room. Turns out there's some health benefits for inhaling watery air for about 15 minutes. So that was a motivating factor. But also, when your throat hurts, steamy air feels nice. Since then, I've been hanging in the steam room and stretching instead of swimming after rock climbing, which is a decision I stand by so far. Once I got home, I had a fantastic quiet time, perhaps because I missed so many quiet times prior, or perhaps it was just a good quiet time. I don't know. To be fair, to be honest, I've actually come to look forward to those a ton. It's like 45 minutes of just a pure peace infusion. Highly recommend. At work, I had the easiest, and thus far only easy, electrical engineering homework I've had thus far. I think I got like 153 or something. It was dumb, but very much needed because my homework grade is garbage in that class. I then worked on this life and email in class, chilled some at home for a bit, and then went over and took my statics test, not statistics. I then ended up getting an 87, but like half the points I lost were for dumb things like not drawing an axis system or putting a free body diagram when I had just done the calculation to do it without it. So I'm pretty salty I didn't get an A, but whatever. Once the midterm was done, as you might expect, my brain was retired, so it was nice to just head to Joe's and play Magic. So yeah, did that for a while, and then I went home and took a bath while watching some anime before responding to Magic's reason and calling it quits. Wednesday, I was feeling mostly whole again, aka not sick, so that was nice. Even now, the remnants of whatever I had still haunt my throat, so definitely wasn't over it, but I started to get better on Wednesday. I did my quiet time in the morning, did school, went to work. Jess, my boss, finally got back, but she had COVID, so she was masked up. Still, her return presence renewed my workload, or reduced my workload, nonetheless, and that was big bueno. I then got some math tutoring, went home, ate food, procured some anime clips for AMVs, and then went to more math tutoring for 2.5 hours. See, at this point, I haven't done any of my calc homework for months because my homework score just gets overridden by my midterm score, and so my first midterm of Calc 3, if my first midterm of Calc 3 is any attestation, doing homework and knowing how problems work isn't the same thing. And they do not get you a good grade. You have to have actually perfect on all syntaxness. Thus, as long as I spend a few days before getting tutored and just doing a bunch of problems and getting the syntax just right, I will get the grade you would expect from me actually trying to work hard and, giving it a shot, which is a pretty good deal. However, this time I actually had a hard time grasping the concepts because, I just banged on figuring it all out a few days before the exam rather than trying to figure out when it was taught to me. So that was a bit of a wrench in my strat. So at the end of 2.5 hour tutoring time, I was like, oh shoot, there's still a lot I don't know. And that was kind of stressful. However, with Calc 3, there's not much to be gained by trying to stay on one's own. So I just put my level of concern to the side and went to play Magic. The next day, once again out of necessity, I sacked my quiet time for math tutoring. However, at the end of that time, I didn't feel quite like... I still didn't feel like I quite had it. So I showed up to my electrical engineering class and had the most rigorous inner dialogue of all history regarding whether I should stay in my class or take the last opportunity to get calc tutoring before the exam. And after like 15 minutes of intense deliberation and the inner council going back and forth, we agreed to go do math. So I ditched class and got tutoring for another hour or so. And finally, at the end of that, I felt like I got it. So it was worth it. However, at the end of that, my brain was well worn, and I felt so tired, I spent the next 3 hours working on his life email and giving my brain a break before going to my calc midterm. And I'm happy to say I did great. I got a 93 in the end, which honestly is not too bad given the grading. I definitely, could have been harsher, so I'm grateful for how it was graded in this case. I then crashed at home, did my classic food anime combo, and then I went to dance club where I learned break dancing, which to be fair was pretty cool. However, most of the people there, they can just pick up moves so fast, or it seems like it. And so I'm like almost the worst one there, which has been a bit discouraging. Especially because they made us all do 2-on-2 dance battles, which you're really singled out for. And I ambitiously tried to do some fast combo moves that I was able to do earlier, but instead totally blew it. I 100% flopped, which was, when I was supposed to be beating up someone else in a dance battle, and it was really embarrassing. So yeah, I'm a bit dance traumatized. Once I got home, I got some food with Dad and hung out with him. Me, him, and Mom watched the next episode of Somalia and the Forest Spirit, which is the least sketchy anime I think I've ever seen. Well, except for maybe Bofuri. So it's close. After that elapsed, I played some Beat Saber, got one level conquered, and uploaded to my YouTube channel, and then just chilled. Friday, I had the standard start to the day, quiet time, work, classes, all that. However, I got out of math early because of a quiz. That was nice. As a result, I used my newfound free time to do the necessary food shopping for the next however long, get gas, clean out my car, all that fun stuff. Once I got back, I enjoyed Mom and Grayson watching a non-anime movie, which was just reminded me that I don't like live action anymore. I mean, it wasn't garbage, but it just wasn't good. Like, it interested me It interested me as much as about a 7 rated anime would. So yeah, I did that, and then I carpooled with Noah over to Love and Laser Tag, made with Alec, Alan's brother, and Liam for a birthday thing for Alan. The drive was good though, and notable as I got to hear the in and outs of Noah's romantic life, which was interesting. See, it seems like dating is just a ton of hurt, and it's not really worth the risk for the reward. But that's just my opinion. Anyway, once we got to Love and Laser Tag, we didn't actually play Laser Tag, at least not yet, but rather entered the escape room next door. And man, let me tell you, that was a really cool escape room. It was themed off a wizard's tower and has some really cool mechanics, like puzzles that require you to taste and smell, and wands that let you have to draw like a picture shapes in the air, and magnet stuff, and blacklight stuff, and light stuff, and really immersive environment. Actually, such a cool room. Unfortunately, we didn't actually complete it. We needed like an extra 5 minutes, and we used like 3 hints, but the room had like a 30% escape rate, so I don't feel too bad about those stats. However, Alec was very tense the whole time, and that made it less fun. I like people who are like super chill when they do an escape room. Almost act like the clock isn't even there. It just makes the experience better. Plus, the other thing is that people were pretty quick to like go for hints, and I personally like figuring stuff out myself, so I wish we hadn't taken as many hints. Yeah, I think we wouldn't have gotten as far, but oh well. Thus, given that experience, I've decided to tentatively search for an escape room buddy who had all the characteristics I enjoy doing escape rooms with, and that I could tell, likes escape rooms. So I'm considering doing some escape room dates with various people that I suspect may be good for the job sometime soon. We'll see. Anyway, it was a good time, and I'm glad we did. And after that, we then went to laser tag, and that was also quite a bit of fun. I still haven't cracked level 6 with my Love and Laser Tag card, somehow. And I didn't rank top on everything because I had to shoot people 3 times to get them out as opposed to, level 1, which only shoot people once, which is a huge disadvantage. Still, I did decently. There was also one soccer game mode that was actually tons of fun. How it works is like one person's vest would flash, indicating they have the ball. And they would either get past opponents by shooting them, making their vest go dark so they could, go past them, or they could pass the ball to a teammate by shooting them. However, if your opponent shoots you while you have the ball, they steal the ball, so there's, significant strategy that can be had. Now, I'm not saying we use significant strategy. It was more like, what's our plan? Win! And it was a great time. The only significant downside to the whole experience was some high school freshman was super annoying. Holy cow, maximally irritable. I believe I was once one of those, albeit not as annoying. And that became increasingly difficult. And it became increasingly difficult after encountering him. But yeah, it was still really a good night. I think I'm going to adopt Alan's method of birthday celebrations in the future. Not asking people to bring gifts, but rather like their gifts be paying for themselves in whatever activities you're doing as a group. That way, it's like their gift to you to be their gift to you is their presents. Haha, get it? Presents, like presents. You're welcome. Saturday was busy. I got some quiet time in the morning, and then I spent the next 6 hours at Griffin for Magic the Gathering pre-release. I did okay at the event, winning 3 out of 5 games. But the big thing is I pulled some really expensive cards. I think I pulled at least $70 worth in cards, and I paid only $35, so I at least doubled my money, which is cool. After that all ended, I ended up, I stopped at home briefly before going to the bus station to pick up Michael. That dude still doesn't have a car, and I don't get why. It's not like he can't afford one. Regardless, we hung out for the rest of the night and caught up on stuff, which was pretty good. Then, once we had philosophied ourselves out, I drove him back to Denver, and our conversation turned to more relational matters, the details which I shall not recount for Michael's sake. I then drove home, listening to some good old music, and went to sleep. The next morning, I rose from church and participated therein. We played some Magic afterward, and I went to D&D and got some good role-playing in. And I must say, I've been able to step into role-playing Quinn route pretty well, and it's been a lot of fun. I then did dishes for what will likely be the last time, because Neo and Sydney have moved. I get, I'll get to actually moving them a little bit later. But the important thing is their new place has their very own state-of-the-art dishwasher. So that's a mega yay. Don't underestimate how significant having things like a dishwasher is. Anyway, I did dishes for them, played Halo with the guys, and then, which was just fun, as always, and then I ran out the night with some Magic games. Monday, the school cycle began afresh. I worked for my ECE set test, which I still don't know how I've done on that, but depending on the result, I'm either screwed or really screwed. After school, I went to Ratio, where Sydney gave a presentation on both Mormon doctrine and her story concerning Mormonism, particularly the leaving of it. And I will say, watching her video of when she told her parents she was leaving hit me way harder than I expected it to. I had to revert to Alex 1.0 just to keep my emotions in check. It definitely caught me off guard. Anyway, the presentation was very good, not just because it moved me, but also because it was, a good job. So, well done, Sydney, if you ever read this. After I went home and finished an anime that I thought was epic, but it wasn't, and so I was disappointed. And then I slept. Disappointedly, mind you. Tuesday was just routine, school, work, math, a bit of doing nothing at the Baja Building Club, and thus I left a little over halfway because I was like, nothing is happening. I then got one game of Magic game with Joe and Benj before I received a call from Mom letting me know that our water heater was broken and our dirt basement had flooded. So yeah, I came home, and thankfully the Myers' Uncle Jediah was super kind to come and fix it at 10 in the night, so that was greatly appreciated. Especially since Dad was gone, and I'm the next oldest male, therefore the duty would have fallen to me. Hence, this is a picture of the basement in that state. So yeah, kind of just chilled and helped out a little bit as needed as Jediah fixed our water here. And then once that was done, I tried to beat Super Hot in under 10 minutes. But seeing as I hadn't played it in actual age, I kind of just failed. And then that was basically my day. However, I did later beat Super Hot in 8 minutes and 50 seconds to be precise. You can watch that if you want, which is really fast. Wednesday, more school, more study for my ECE test. I then did a big math before going over to Neo's for hang time. It was great. We had lots of food, and I don't know, just really enjoyed that. After that, I went to Magic Club and had some really good games, actually. For me, a good game is largely dependent upon who I'm playing with. And there's this guy named Nick who I find really fun to play with. He's not too uptight, and he really just enjoys games. Also, complete side fact, but I think this is the only time, or maybe one time earlier, due to Maddie's blatant declaration of it, that I realized one of the guys I've enjoyed playing with for quite some time is, in fact, gay. Looking back on it, it seems super obvious. He paints his nails, wears a lot of jewelry and stuff, but for some reason, didn't put that together just now, after knowing him for I think a year. So yeah, just a fun fact. I'm oblivious to your sexual orientation, apparently. So yeah, Magic games went well, had a good time, and that was the day. Thursday, I did my normal routine, even though I had my scary ECE test, because the way I see it, being a healthy human is about more than just tests. Thus, I rock climbed in the morning, and for the first time, noticed a definite improvement in my rock climbing routines. Routes I could complete, and how easily I can complete them, so that's cool. I then partook in a beautiful quiet time, and it was just so peaceful. I really wish I could find someone who enjoys my instrumental music as much as I do, because I could just have them bask in it with me. That would be great. But until that day arrives, I guess I will only understand the true tranquility. I then took my Death ECE test, and I think that went well, but we'll see. Thereafter, I did homework, worked on his life video at work, and attended Sydney's singing training. So it turns out, regarding that, you need to breathe your diaphragm while singing, and I suck at that. I actually took so much conscious effort to breathe through my diaphragm. I wasn't able to, sing, so ever since then, whenever I'm singing in the car, or I've been actually doing anything, I'm making a conscious effort to breathe my diaphragm. My stomach's actually gotten so sore from exercising. So yeah, I did that. That was good. I decided I would try to console Sydney, and thus we talked. I got us both sushi, and we watched her dating show together. Though, not gonna lie, that was pretty close to liquid death. Not only was it not anime, which is already pretty bad, but it was just watching people date and the drama that was included therein. And I mean, I guess it could have been worse, but still, it very much hurt my soul. And I actually can't understand how anyone could willingly subject themselves to that. However, once I got back, I received 2 more anime posters, and thus was consoled. Look at those beautiful posters. Aren't those epic? So yeah, that offset the dating death. I then talked with William some before he had to eat. Worked on my nunchucks, which are finally finished, and I can show you them. Nunchuck. This one doesn't look as nice, but, it's got some real weight, and it feels cool to swing around. There's another nunchuck. This one looks way cooler in my opinion, but feels kind of weird, since the wooden parts are, noticeably lighter than the chain parts, but oh well. I'm pretty happy with how they both turned out. So yeah, finished those. I finished one later than the other, I think, and then I caught up with Caleb just a bit before he and Ben headed off to New Zealand. That Friday, aka the day before break started, I came in way overconfident in my Mech 105 midterm, since I was actually acing that class. And I got a 70 or something on that test, so that dropped my grades considerably. Lesson learned. I then did work and went to my classes before deciding to skip my math class, because let's be honest, knowing Anthony, I almost guarantee we had class for 10 minutes and then let us out. So yeah, I used that time to go on a run on the treadmill at CSU and listen to the first part of C.S. Lewis's Space Trilogy because William recommended it to me so highly. And so far it's I mean, I didn't get very far, but I wasn't particularly, sucked in. However, it did make the run go by faster, so it was definitely a pleasant result. Thus, I'll probably listen to audiobooks as I run in the future. Thereafter, I went to Joe's for a pseudo-birthday party celebration, in addition to the usual movie nights of Fridays, which I don't attend. And we played Magic before watching one of the Jurassic Park movies, which was, in my opinion, indistinguishable from the other Jurassic Park movies, and thereby terribly underwhelming. But that's just my opinion. After that, Noah and I followed up on a previously arranged meeting, which, due to the hour at which it was conducted, turned out to occur at McDonald's. And we just caught up on life and then talked a bit of philosophy, and it was good. I'm glad Noah organized it. Saturday morning break began, but nevertheless, I did not sleep in because I attended a book study meeting with Alan and Matt, because we're inching our way through Owens. I got through that, and then I played some VR before meeting the Macy's, saved Mr. Macy at a coffee shop, and then just catching up with them and playing Catan, and it was decent. Cordial. I think Amelia is the only one of them that I could independently become friends with, but even then, I'm not sure. We all get along well as a family friends, and we do stuff together, but we just don't like talking other times, so I don't know what to count us as. After that, I joined in a self-hosted draft. Braden did his place, and that was okay. I'm glad I went, and Braden gave us all prize packs for winning, but the tension between him and Maddie was very tangible at this point, and so it was a bit uncomfortable to be around. Still, it was a decent time. Once I got home, I went on a call with Liam, talked with him for ages, and almost beat him in an anime quiz. It was far closer than I've gotten in quite some time. And then I did a bit of a Beat Saber and slept. After church the next day, we did a big 6-player Magic game, which was a blast, and also sadly cut short by play practice. I joined everyone for the last D&D session at Neo's and City's apartment, and the semi-final session of the campaign. It was pretty good. Thereafter, I came home, ate food, watched some anime, and spent 2 hours trying to figure out how to weave this chain pattern I saw a few months ago for my chainmail armor. I did eventually figure it out through a bit of reverse engineering after 2 hours, but now I forgot it again, and I'm radically disappointed in myself. I know, I watched some video about it somewhere, but I have actually no clue where, so I just forgot. So yeah, I was pained by that process, and then I started what has got to be the best VR puzzle game I think I've ever played this far. It's a VR version of a popular game called Myst, and it's really cool. It makes you I think what makes it so cool is they don't tell you how to do anything, or even tell you how to get the puzzle right, or if you got the puzzle right. You're just plopped on an island and have to figure things out. Also, you have to take physical notes and stuff to figure out how a lot of puzzles work too, so it's an actual challenge. However, while overall I like the learning on the job principle of the game, there was definitely 2 instances that were super vexing. See, one of the puzzles, you're stuck in this series of crisscrossing paths on the ground and basically have to find your way through the maze. But the only thing that distinguishes one junction from the other is the sound it plays when you arrive at the said junction. And so I spent 2 hours going back and forth between junctions, trying to figure out if there was some complex pattern and stuff. And then, when that didn't work, systematically mapping every path, only to realize after 2 hours that the sound corresponded to the direction on my compass. And then I solved the maze in 3 minutes. So it's cases like that where you're okay, this was very much not clear. And if I just knew that, the whole thing would have been so easy. But I suppose that's how it goes. However, in the other case, I will not forgive so easily. See, the other case was super frustrating because it's basically this 3-digit lock combo. You have a lever, that can move the top 2 rings, the bottom 2 rings of this 3-digit lock. Each ring, of course, having the numbers 1 to 3. And I guarantee you, I spent over an hour trying to figure out how to solve this super puzzle. Here, I'll show you my work. It's pictures of my work. Now, I know it just looks like a bunch of, scribbles, because it is. But that's not just my work on that one puzzle. There's a few that mixed in. But the majority of that was me trying to figure out how on earth I'm supposed to solve this. I even sat down and used my engineering brain and formulated the problem into a mathematical equation, which I then attempted to solve algebraically, only to keep getting the false result, aka my math was telling me it could not be solved. So I spent 2 hours trying every conceivable way to model this problem, and even trying to make it work, work through every possibility to discover if you hold the right lever down. Not either lever, mind you, only the right one. You can independently turn the middle section, but only if you hold it. So the reason my equations told me I couldn't solve it is because I actually couldn't solve it. There was this very dumb extra thing you could do that I didn't know about. So that was annoying. However, in hindsight, it's pretty cool I was able to successfully mathematically model the problem and then correctly discover from mathematically solving it that the problem, as I understood it, could not be solved. So I guess it was an upside. But yeah, aside from those 2 cases, I really like the game, and I would definitely recommend it to anyone with a Quest. After playing this for a bit, the battery died, and I went back to work trying to figure out how to do the dumb chainmail thing for a while. Then Sam Treat sent me a video about Lego engines, and I proceeded to travel down that YouTube rabbit hole, watching people make Lego engines. See, I basically never go down a YouTube rabbit hole, but it's clear that it can easily be done. The next morning was Tuesday, and I had no quiet time since I had to get up in the morning to help Neil and Sydney move. And I've got to say, perhaps I'm just spoiled with good moving education, but they did not prepare. Look, moving is a skill which I personally am well versed in, and I don't think those that haven't moved before understand this, nor care to understand it. So please, if you ever want me or anyone else for that matter to help you move, please put things in boxes. Label those boxes. Organize the boxes. And know where you want the boxes to go. Okay, to be fair, the bad ones weren't horrible, but still, I've seen much, much better. But yeah, I held boxes for about 4 hours in total. Of actual hauling, that is. At the end of it, I did get a little bit sad about leaving the place. I've had a lot of good memories there, And aside from that, it kind of represents the end of an era. Jeremy's already gone. There's a good chance John might leave in some distant state soon. Neil and Sydney, as of the next semester, are no longer in college, and everyone's just becoming an adult and living an adult life. And I mean, it's not just Neil and Sydney. It's kind of all the people that I know my age. They're kind of stepping into being an adult and all the boring tedium that comes with it. So I find that a little bit tragic. But, moanings aside, I helped them move and then met up with John to go shopping for some magic cards. Played a few 1v1 games, and then everyone came to his house and we all did an escape room together. There were 8 of us in total. Ty, not his house. Anyway. Ty, Karina, Joe, Ben, Sam, Johanna, Noah, and myself, and we all did pretty well. The room was kind of meh, but the people were cool, so we had a good time. Here's a picture of us all standing in beating the escape room with only 18 minutes left on the clock. No hints, might I add. Boop. Sam clearly is the most dope among us. There were quite a few puzzles I hack/brute force my way through in that room, and I loved doing that, so that was a good experience for me. After that, we came back to Joe's place and played Magic till midnight. The next day, I did engage in quiet time in the morning, had a super dumb missed puzzle experience that I ranted about earlier. I then met up with the Ratchet Christian gang, as well as Katie, in the flesh, for a much better done escape room about Pharaoh-y stuff. There were 9 of us in that one, and honestly, it was overcrowded. I don't know about how half those puzzles got solved. But regardless, we did it, and once again, without any hints. After that, we went to Johnson's Corner and got food and talked. Honestly, though, it was pretty disappointing with the whole experience. For one, Katie felt off or distant, not how I remember her being. And for 2, is that how you say that? Noah, Katie's brother, was there, and I just don't super jive with him. So that was a bit of a sad. Third, it almost felt forced. We weren't there because we enjoyed each other's company, but because we had to be there. And thus, we're just, all politely small-talking until the time came where we could finally, leave each other. Yeah, definitely not very experienced for a number of reasons. But even with those stated reasons, I concede my discontent could be rooted in some other things I'm not currently aware of. Regardless, I was radically dissatisfied with the time. After that, I drove home, built my tribal well deck for Magic, and then gathered some more anime clips for what will eventually become an AMV. The next day was Thanksgiving, which I had no clue was on Thursday until 2 days before. And that was a decent day. I got to do some quiet time in the morning, which was good. Completed the missed game, which according to the true/good ending, and I did according to the true/good ending, sample one of the bad endings, and then engaged in more small talk with the resident members of the family that I attended. It was good to see everyone, though. Also broke my no sugar fast, and man, did it taste good. Sugar is noticeably better when you're deprived of it for a while. I then headed over to the Myers Thanksgiving since ours wrapped up and spent 3 hours and 30 minutes building Lego with Seth and basically only making some super fancy suspended wheels. Don't get me wrong, it was a cool suspension system, But the product was definitely underwhelming from the amount of time that went into it. After that, I played some table tennis with Benj, which was hijacked by Grace and Johanna. And then we made up this increasingly strange hybrid table tennis game where Benj and I was tasked with turning the ball back to our resident female. So if Grace missed the ball, then I had to try and like hit it back to her. And we decided to use our hands because it ended up... Oh, we started off using our hands, but ended up using stuffed bears as paddles. Lily and Sam started chucking balls across the table, and yeah, it was a horrible deal. Here's a picture Seth took without my knowledge, and I found was on my phone afterward. Since I actually have so many, I might as well put one of them to good use. And yeah, we did that till Joe and Noah arrived, and then we played a crazy game of Magic where we had basically 30 mana each and so much card draw and things to play. It was wild. Joe used his group deck, his group hug deck, and I played my wall deck, and it was really the combo of those two that made the game absolutely insane. And time-consuming, mind you. So yeah, we were there doing that till midnight and a half. Finally, Grace and I had a good talk on the drive home, and that was oddly enough probably the highlight of my day. The next day, I supervised Neo and gave him a bit of help as he changed his own oil, and then he paid me with some Five Guys. We watched some Grimgar Actions and Illusions at his new place, and it was way more sketch than I remember it being, so that was fun. After that, me, him, and Sydney went over to their old place and played Magic in the Night. It turns out Neo has this one deck that's like killer in 1v1. I actually decimated both my black and white, although only because he has dumb enchantments to give him protection from a color, which if you're a monocolor deck, is ridiculously OP. But thankfully, my blue deck was still to beat him, albeit not early. So yeah, we did that until about 1, and then I went home and went to sleep. Yesterday, I met up with Joe at about 1, and we hung out for most of the day. We started the day off by playing 2-hour games of Magic, which was good and all, but man, I think I'm getting Magic fatigue. Like, I just played so much Magic as of late, it's starting to feel like more of a chore than a privilege. But yeah, we went on a drive and talked about some personal stuff, as well as some philosophy stuff, and I was kind enough to grace him with my new philosophical problems that I've been learning, which he was deeply grateful for. And then once we got back, we just talked more philosophy until Benj came over. We then played yet another Magic game with Benj before people decided to go bug Noah at work. However, the whole weekend and all its activities at this point... after the whole weekend and all its activities at this point, I was feeling really socially exhausted, so I opted out and just went home to chill. I ended up watching an anime movie with Sydney, not Neo Sydney. Oh, no, that Sydney. Not Neo Sydney recommended to me, and it was actually really good. Probably my second favorite anime movie thus far. Once I ended, I rounded the night by gathering more anime clips and going to bed. Finally, as for today I went to church, played 4 hours of Magic, and then came home and did things like sort my Magic cards and find a new anime to watch, and then work on this. And now before I end, I've got to say, especially going through this life on email, I really felt like I've settled for mediocrity at this point in my life. Like, what I mean is I used to be so much more ambitious than this. I used to consider things like these long games of Magic just a waste of time. I wouldn't engage in them. And while I'm not confident that's correct, I'm confident I'm not living as intentionally right now as I would like to be. And I want to change that. So yeah, kind of just a personal resolution. But I want my next life email to contain a whole lot less played Magic for 4 hours in it. Anyway, with that, this life of email, like all good things, must come to a close. Until next time, I wish you well. And don't become a heretic, because in the words of Aquinas, if a heretic returns to the faith, let his soul be forgiven and then be parted from his body. I'm paraphrasing, but yeah, he did say that.